힘이 됩니다. 부산 방송광고발전협의회.
The time is now 7 o'clock.
Welcome back, everybody. You know, I think sometimes it takes being away from home to realize just how precious home is. And for many of you, maybe it took this long holiday to appreciate the day-to-day routine and just daily life. And this holiday was particularly bumpy, with heavy snow blanketing much of the country and even an airplane fire at Kimhae Airport. You probably heard about this one. Some of you are back to work in daily life while others are still enjoying an extended holiday. So wherever you are, let's put safety above all else. I'm Catherine. This is Morning Wave in Busan on Friday, January 31st on BEFM, 부산 영어 방송. Good morning, Wavers. I hope that you enjoyed your long lunar holiday. Welcome back. We are so back, right? And the thing is this. I wish I could greet you with like a really full-hearted hello, how are you? How have you been? It's been a stressful time once again. I'm sure you heard about what happened at Kimhae Airport. If you haven't, we're going to give you the details. And also a tragic plane crash in Washington, D.C. as well, between a plane and a helicopter. We're going to get into the details of everything that happened during the past few days. But first things first, good morning. I hope you're doing well. And the thing is this, that for some, you know, the holiday, this Lunar New Year, fell at the end of January, slightly earlier than usual. And perhaps because of this, it was certainly colder than usual. For much of the rest of the country, what does this mean? Well, it meant massive amounts of snow with strong winds as well. And everywhere in the country, except for Busan and parts of Gyeongnam, well, we saw heavy snow from this past Monday through Wednesday up to 72.7 centimeters in Jeju. And in Muju, 38 centimeters. So this snow resulted in a number of sheds and farm structures collapsing under the heavy weight. And multiple flights were canceled or delayed, leaving passengers stranded at airports. I certainly hope that, you weren't one of those passengers. But, of course, speaking of airports, the big news from the holiday week was the fire that broke out of an Air Busan plane that was getting ready to depart out of Kimhae International Airport. So thankfully, the good news is this. Everyone made it out of the plane with 3 people sustaining some minor injuries, but so many unanswered questions. Of course, we'll deep dive into this issue later on. And like I said, of that tragic plane crash and helicopter crash in Washington, D.C. area. So we're going to cover all of that. But for now, I do want to know how you spent your holiday. I hope everything went smoothly. So, text topic, simply put, highlights of your holiday, or better yet, you can send in your photos to let us know how it went. The good, the bad, the ugly. Send them all in. If you want to send photos, you're going to have to send them to our KakaoTalk 부산 영어 방송 channel. And, if you send the photos in, I'm assuming you're giving me permission to post them on our Notu page. 여러분 연휴 즐거웠죠? 그랬으면 좋겠습니다. 그리고 카톡으로 부산 영어 방송으로 사진도 함께 보내주시면 되고요. And if you send them in once again, that's I'm assuming that you're giving us permission. So let us know. And you can send in your stories, your photos, but your stories especially to the live stream live chat on YouTube. So that means go to the platform, search for BEFM or 부산 영어 방송, and then you can definitely send in your messages there. Chat with our other wavers once you subscribe and log in. Also, pound 9050 on your phone. That's going to cost you 101. And like I said, you can send in your messages and photos through the KakaoTalk channel as well. And you can listen to us on the radio if you're in Busan. 90.5, 103.3 FM. And also, like I said, we're streaming live on YouTube. We're also available on the BFM and also the Patbang app. Looking ahead to our morning together. So it is Monday, right? So let's go over what we have for you today. We have Showbiz Buzz. That's with Michael. And later, it's Friday. It's not even Monday. Duh. It's Casey and Vasana today. My brain thinks it's Monday, but it's Friday. We have Casey and Vasana. Foreign press highlights and what in the world. And for a special interview today, we're going to talk about something that affects many people out there. Obesity. You know, for many years on years, obesity has been defined using body mass index, right? 체질량 지수, the BMI. So in South Korea, there's a certain number. Other countries have other standards. But are we defining obesity in the right way? Let's find out more about BMI and obesity. That's coming up in hour number 2. I'll be back with today's headlines. It's South 706. These are today's headlines. All 67 dead in Washington, D.C. plane and helicopter crash. All 67 people involved in the American Airlines flight are presumed dead in the collision with a Black Hawk helicopter over the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. Air Busan plane fire investigation delayed by fuel. Investigation has begun into the Air Busan passenger plane that caught fire at Kimhae International Airport, but it has faced delays over safety issues due to the fuel stored inside the craft. Lee Sang-min says cabinet members against Yoon's martial law declaration. Former Interior Minister Lee Sang-min reportedly told the police that cabinet ministers at the meeting immediately before the December 3rd martial law declaration had objected to the president's decision to declare martial law. Hostage handover continues in Gaza's ceasefire deal. The Israeli military confirmed 7 hostages. 2 Israelis and 5 Thai nationals have been handed to the Red Cross in Gaza by Hamas. In return, Israel released 110 Palestinians held in Israeli prisons. Kim Ha-sung signs $29 million deal with Tampa Bay Rays. South Korean infielder Kim Ha-sung has signed a surprise 2-year deal worth $29 million with the Tampa Bay Rays in the MLB. And these are today's headlines. It's time to check in with Sue, so let's see how she's doing first before Busan updates. Good morning.
Good morning.
How was your Lunar New Year celebrations?
It was great.
What did you do?
Nothing much, not so much, but I ate a lot, so I think I got indigestion.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So what kind of foods did you enjoy? Let's hear it.
From like main food like 떡국 to like some bulgogi, japchae to lots of desserts like ice cream.
Oh,
Yeah,
the whole
and-
shebang, you're right.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you ate well, but you got some indigestion,
Yes.
overeating a little.
And the funny thing was, I had to fight for my food. I had to guard
Fight?
my food from my dog because we put a table on the floor.
Yes.
So when family gets together,
Sure.
and then my dog, of course, would try to look for an opportunity to eat, to steal the food. So I'm
Really?
like pushing him away.
What's your
and then-
dog's name, by the way?
His name is King.
King.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that name.
Thank
He
you.
is Wang. All right. Let's get into our first update. You know, with 60 days remaining until the Busan Superintendent of Education by-election, election opinion polls in the candidates' names. Apparently, they've been prohibited, right?
Yes, after the dismissal of the former Superintendent of Education, Ha Yun-soo, by-election was scheduled for April 2nd, and Busan Election Commission 선거관리위원회 announced that starting from February 1st, opinion polls related to the election cannot be conducted in the names of candidates, and this includes prospective candidates until election day. And in addition, the acting Superintendent of Education is not allowed to engage in activities that could influence the election. He and public officials affiliated with the Office of Education, including district education offices, cannot organize or sponsor events like cultural lectures, project briefings, public hearings, professional group meetings, sports competitions, civil complaint consultations. And exceptions apply to legally mandated events like disaster relief efforts, vocational training, and urgent civil complaint resolutions. However, candidates may conduct opinion polls among voters for the purpose of unifying candidacies, provided that the results, including approval ratings, are not publicly disclosed and are used solely as internal data for unification efforts.
I see. So thanks for letting us know about the upcoming by-election. And next, let's talk about this. I think most of us remember this whole Busan, roundhouse kick incident. The victim of that incident, they've created a social education platform called Everyone Should Be Safe. So tell us a little bit about the incident first, because it was kind of an infamous one, and then also what happened thereafter.
Right. So 부산 돌려차기 사건 is a well-known violent crime. It happened in May 2022. A man in his 30s followed the victim into her apartment building late at night, and as she was about to enter her home, he attacked her from behind and knocked her unconscious with a powerful roundhouse kick, turning kick, and he continued to assault her, and he caused severe injuries.
Yes.
And the attack was captured on CCTV, and it was widely shared online. So many people became outrageous. And the case sparked outrage even more across the whole country because many people criticized the justice system's handling of violent crimes against women.
That's right.
Because in the first trial, he was sentenced to 12 years in prison, which many considered too lenient given the brutality of the crime. Due to public pressure and new evidence suggesting sexual assault intent, the prosecution appealed for a harsher sentence. So as a result, the Supreme Court gave him a 20-year sentence for attempted murder.
Yes. So what made her decide, Kim, to make this platform?
So Ms. Kim has been sharing her experience and offering advice to other crime victims and their families about how to cope and respond. She studied the legal system and victim protection policies over several years. However, she realized that there was no accessible platform for victims to learn even basic legal terms and available support systems. Moreover, many victims are afraid of revealing their identity and often rely on online spaces to share information.
Yes.
Yet, most support systems are offline. So to better assist them, she was motivated to make her platform in order to improve victim protection and reduce disparities in accessing support. The platform will be structured in the form of lectures with plans to invite experts in crime and psychology. Ultimately, her goal is for even those who haven't experienced crime to learn about the evolving types of crime and effective prevention strategies, helping to reduce the risk of becoming victim themselves.
I can't imagine being a victim of this kind of crime and being having the strength and courage to come up with this and go so public with her story. So thanks for sharing this part of her story. All right, next up, the Busan Agricultural Technology Center announced that it will operate the Our Family Healing Agriculture Service. So this is starting from March going through June.
Yes. So it's a community service initiative launched by Busan Agricultural Technology Center in collaboration with Busan Social Services Agency. The service will offer programs under the guidance of experts certified in healing agriculture, focusing on emotional stability, psychological healing, and stress relief. Participants will benefit from the psychological therapeutic effects of agricultural activities in nature.
Yes. So tell us more about the details of this course?
So there are 3 courses available, one for adults, one for elementary school students, and another for children with developmental disabilities or borderline intellectual functioning. Residents of Busan who are elementary school students or older can apply for the program through their local administrative welfare center. The application period is from February 3rd to 11th.
Yes. So thanks for letting us know about this one. And moving on, let's talk about the Busan Creative Economy Innovation Center announcing the C Lab in Busan Workation Activation Project. It has been extended for an additional 3 months. So now it's going to run through March 31st, right?
Yes. So the purpose of this project is to revitalize the local economy by increasing the floating economic population in Haeundae-gu district. Individual remote workers and corporate teams can combine productivity with the unique cultural experiences that Busan offers. Private companies FlexDay and Cheonggeguri are operating this project together. The program is open to employees working at companies located outside of Busan, as well as freelancers living and working in areas outside of Busan. Free office space is offered on the 4th floor of the Busan Creative Economy Innovation Center. And the first 30 applicants who apply for the workation and confirm their accommodation by February 15th will receive a Lotte World Busan Comprehensive Pass. Additionally, participants will receive up to 60,000 won in accommodation support per room per night, along with tourism vouchers worth 30,000 won per person. The 30,000 won worth voucher includes experiences like local and Michelin-starred restaurants, cafes, as well as activities like surfing, yachting, beach trains, and trekking in the Haeundae-gu district.
Oh, well, that sounds like a lot of fun mixed in with work, of course. But what are the documents that people need to prepare in advance for this?
So they need to submit a business registration certificate,
Okay.
사업자 등록증, and a proof of employment. That's all they need.
Okay, so they're pretty simple, the process. So hopefully more people use this for their work. So thank you for all the updates. And of course, we'll check in with you on Monday. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
All right, I'll be back with our traffic and weather. It is now time for your traffic report. So it's looking slow on Jungwangdae right now from the Seomyeon intersection going towards Hwangmu-gyo. Also backed up on the Apec-lo around the Olympic intersection, but in both directions. And it's congested on Dongso Overpass going away from the city near Judae Ramp. Currently, it is 0 degrees Celsius under clear skies. The daytime high will go up to around 11 degrees. Looking ahead to the weekend, light rain from early tomorrow morning through Sunday. Relatively warm both days. We're looking at a low of 6 and a high of 10 degrees Celsius on each day. And this was your traffic and weather.
Are you an early bird? Are you up to date on the news? Are you a trendsetter? For all of the biggest issues from Busan to the world and useful information you need, right here on Morning Wave in Busan.
Let's say hi to Haley first. Good morning.
Good morning.
I swear I thought it was a Monday, but it's a Friday.
I was like, what are you talking about?
I know,
And then
you're like,
yeah, I was like, what?
What?
Excuse me? What? Can't
Yes,
be.
it is indeed Friday. Hey, so how was your Lunar New Year week so
It
far?
was lovely.
Uh-huh.
My family and I went to Pohang for was it overnight? Yeah, it was an overnight trip that felt like 2 full days.
Yes.
Yeah, very cold. But as a decade-long Busaner, I saw my first snow in over 10 years.
Oh,
because
wow.
prior to that, I was a Seattleite and we don't really get snow. Well,
Right. Uh-huh.
not when I used to live there. So yeah, it didn't really stick, but I did get to step in a little bit of residual snow. Did I stick my tongue out and catch the flakes with my mouth? Maybe, and then realize maybe this isn't good for me. Anyways,
clean.
I did take photos and give them to our producer. And I think, we have them up. So first one, I believe that's the at the easternmost point of the Korean peninsula or South Korea.
Yes.
That's a big hand. Like Homikot, and people do go there to see the sunrise over that hand. It's gigantic, quite lovely. And then that was the sunrise. Oh yeah,
Right.
that's the sunrise of the Lunar New Year, the new year on the lunar calendar. So yeah, Happy New Year to everyone.
Yes.
Then a couple of other ocean points. It's a little lighthouse, and yeah. What else did I say? Oh, and then the big spacewalk, which I couldn't
was
go.
that?
Well, it was too windy, so they shut it down. So
okay.
it was nice and safe and grounded.
Yes.
Because I was literally on the ground. Yeah, it was overall lovely. Very
Right.
cold. Very cold. So windy.
You braved the cold. You
I
did.
really did.
All right. Well, we're going to dive into our first story, which is a very local one. The Air Busan plane fire that happened on Tuesday, right?
Right. So it seems like our waivers were pretty safe and sound over the
Yes.
weekend, but I mean, elsewhere around the world, locally and internationally, it was definitely a lot happened. So,
Right.
quick recap: on Tuesday, the 28th, it was at 10:15 p.m. The Air Busan flight BX391 plane caught fire from the
Right.
inside part of the tail of the plane. So the cabin was apparently filled with smoke, and there were some sparks that began to fly. Thankfully, all 170 passengers and 6 crew members evacuated the plane via the emergency slide.
Sure.
But 3 passengers, as you said, were minorly injured, but they received treatment. So the fire department, they put out the fire in about under an hour and a half, but it was a tricky maneuver because this was before takeoff. So that plane was filled with fuel to get them to Hong Kong, the intended destination.
Right.
We're talking about 35,000 pounds of fuel. So the fire incinerated the entirety of the inside of the plane. And as you can see on our YouTube page, pretty much the top third, at least the ceiling part of the body of the plane.
Yes.
So the Transportation Ministry, along with Busan's police, fire agency, and national forensics authorities, they conducted an initial investigation on the scene to figure out the cause of the fire. But of course, the investigation is ongoing.
Yes, yes. And as I mentioned in the headlines, the investigation has faced a delay because of the fuel.
Right. We again have to go with the fuel that's
Right.
been pretty much filled up in both wings of the plane.
Okay.
And not only that, but there's also emergency oxygen that's stored inside.
Yes.
So there are risks of fires or even explosions during the plane's inspection. So the Aviation and Railway Accident Investigation Board with the Transportation Ministry, they will consult the French Bureau of Inquiry and Analysis for Civil Aviation Safety, the French BEA. And this is under the regulations with the International Civil Aviation Organization that calls for participation of a country that manufactured the affected plane, as this plane was created by Airbus, of course, a French company.
Yes.
In any case, the investigation is ongoing still. The Transportation Ministry retrieved the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder, and they will analyze the data, also taking witness statements.
I see. So, of course, that's going to be ongoing, the investigation. But there has been some controversy over whether the crew and the airline had acted, I guess, properly according to protocol.
Right. So initially, some passengers who are on the plane, they gave interviews with the media. So keep in mind that these are very subjective accounts of what happened.
Yes.
But passengers said that there was chaos inside with flight attendants, according to their words, not evacuating the plane immediately while they were trying to put the fire out. So it seems that some of the passengers were frustrated with the lack of communication or the perceived lack of communication. However, the airline released a press release saying that the situation was quite urgent and it did not give the crew members time for any announcements over the intercom system, but they did follow the manual in that short time that was allotted to them.
Yes.
The pilot was also reported of the situation, and he or she, they shut down the hydraulic pressure system and the fuel system to prevent any further accidents and declared an emergency evacuation.
I see. And now that is, of course, our local plane story. And now we're going to go abroad. We're going to go to Washington, D.C., where, we have news regarding the plane and the helicopter that crashed and presumably killed 67 people.
Right. In another shocking accident, the American Airlines flight 5342 and the military Black Hawk helicopter, they crashed over the Potomac River in an incident that's been fairly well documented online. You do see just the well, it was essentially a helicopter that crashed
Into
into
the plane. Right.
According to emergency authorities, the figures keep updating, but they have unfortunately switched to a recovery effort, meaning all 67 people are presumed dead, as you said. They have so far found 28 bodies. So this American Airlines passenger jet, it had departed from Wichita, Kansas. It was apparently carrying about 20 figure skaters and their coaches because it was coming back from a camp. And according to the U.S. Figure Skating Association, this included a Korean-American teenage figure skater.
Right.
Investigation is, of course, ongoing. It has really just begun. But experts say that this particular airspace going to the Ronald Reagan Airport right above the Potomac, it's one of the busiest, one of the most complicated, but that also both pilots would have been used to navigating this complicated airspace. So the investigators said that they will look into all potential causes, including mechanical, human, and environmental causes, but that for now they will let the first responders do their recovery work before starting the investigation in full. And fingers are already being kind of pointed with President Donald Trump blaming the Biden administration's DEI, the diversity and equity policies, for what he said, but so far unsubstantiated, hiring of some potentially unqualified people into the air traffic controls. And also Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying that a mistake was made, that there seems to have been some sort of an elevation issue with the helicopter. So a lot of accusations being thrown, but so far none proven given how early on it is.
I mean, it just happened, right? So we don't have all the details, obviously, but we're going to continue to follow that story as well. Let's move on to another issue, the cost of living. We often complain, right, that everything goes up except our pay, and then we have inflation. Is this actually true, though? Our complaints?
It is, and we are literally sitting here losing money, according to
안 되는데.
data. I know. So we are currently seeing the biggest gap between pay increase rates and price increases, and this is the biggest since the financial crisis. So this is based on the National Tax Service data on annual wages. So the latest data for 2023. The average wage in South Korea was 43.3 million won, 4,330만 원 annually. A 2.8% increase from the year before. And actually, this is actually a quite low figure compared to the average of about 3.6% from the last 10 years.
Right.
So keep that figure in mind. Your wages on average went up by 2.8%. On the contrary, same year, consumer prices, so how much we paid for stuff, that went up by 3.6%. So we basically lost out about 0.8% in differences between how much you made and how much stuff just cost for you to buy. So when I said we're sitting here losing money, that is the state of the economy.
Yes.
By the way, this was the second consecutive year with the so-called negative gap between wages and prices. And then in an item-by-item analysis, it pretty much was the most expensive to keep ourselves fed. Because last year, the top 10 items that saw the biggest price increases, 9 out of those 10 items, food. Food related. And this is according to Statistics Korea. Number 1, 배. The pears,
the
like
pears.
Asian or Korean pears, which went up by almost 72%. So that's nearly, not quite, but nearly double. Second place, tangerines by 46%, followed by other fruits, persimmons, apples, and Asian cabbage, vegetable. These were mostly affected by weather disasters and poor harvests. And then tangerines, because apples and pears were so expensive, demand for tangerines went up. And ironically enough, they got expensive. The only non-food item on the top 10 list was computer repairs, which ironic given what happened to us this morning. We had some technical glitches. So I think our engineer should charge more.
Yes.
At 30% increase.
Kudos to our engineer this morning.
Right. Thank you. VIP and MVP there. And that was due to the rise in the cost of electronic parts and, of course, labor costs.
Indeed. And speaking of like tangerines, I was out in the traditional market.
Yeah.
And for the first time, I saw imported tangerines. But I didn't buy them because they looked like almost fake, like too perfect.
Oh.
It was kind of like...
Right.
So I picked one up just to see. And I was just like... looked like. I'm not saying it was. It looked like it had been like painted orange, like so.
Oh, like
So perfect looking,
spotless, and just
spotless and
that
not-
perfect hue
Right.
of orange. I
so-
don't know.
Put it back.
Yeah,
I was like,
tangerines are supposed to be bumpy.
yes.
Right.
All right. So the new buzzword in tech and business is this. Have you seen this, guys? We're talking about DeepSeek. Its sudden appearance in the world of AI has really shocked, I think, like tech leaders and just lay people, and sent stocks for top AI related firms spiraling. So we need to know, what exactly is DeepSeek and why is it taking the tech world by storm?
Right, and this has been the pattern the past few years with
Yes.
OpenAI's ChatGPT. I mean, whenever these come out, we're like, what is that? Who are these people and what is it? And why is it such a big deal?
Right.
But with ChatGPT, DeepSeek also kind of is the new buzzword right now. So DeepSeek is actually the company behind that AI model. It's a Chinese AI startup that's released its newest R1 model of that AI chatbot on January 20th. So just on the surface, a very overall recap, pretty good chatbot according to people who have used it.
Okay.
Full disclosure, I have not. But the reason that it has caused such a stir is that it basically pretty much challenged almost everything that developers and tech giants have said about AI chatbot development.
Yes, yes. And so which are what, though?
Right. So basically, these high functioning chatbots, they take massive amounts of money and highly advanced chips, so semiconductor chips with giant computing power.
Okay.
But the DeepSeek's R1 model created with fraction of the cost and computing power, which is why, once again, the stocks for companies like NVIDIA and other chip producers kind of plummeted initially. We'll
Okay.
get to that part. So artificial intelligence, how it learns, this machine learning uses data that's available out there on the internet. And it can use similar processes as human reasoning. But as our human reasoning requires brain cells to function,
Yes.
they take computer chips. So at least from what experts and users have experienced so far, the A1 model from DeepSeek and ChatGPT's model from late last year apparently pretty comparable in terms of their computing and reasoning levels.
Okay.
However, in terms of the money, DeepSeek spent $6 million as opposed to OpenAI's $100 million.
Wow.
Right. But then let's keep in mind that the $6 million figure is just for that R1 model
I
that
see.
they've released. So we don't know how many beta tests or other models were there.
Yes, yes. And another groundbreaking part is how much or how relatively little computing power it requires.
Right, and for that we go to NVIDIA
Okay.
because the United States has banned export of high-functioning chips from NVIDIA since September of 2022. And these are, by the way, the A100 chips.
Right.
But apparently before that, DeepSeek has it's stockpiled quite a bit, but at the same time, they've also figured out a way to pair whatever stock of highly functioning chips it had with the lesser highly functioning chips or lower functioning chips to create this AI chatbot.
Okay.
So it's not fully detailed by the company. The cost of training and developing its model appears to have been only a fraction of its other competitors out there. So this is why NVIDIA shares went down by 17% on January 27th. So NVIDIA is the world's largest company. It lost $589 billion in value. So we're talking like significant South Korean like top corporations'
Right.
entire value just lost or comparable to the cost. And that was, by the way, the record biggest loss on record, period.
Yes.
On a larger scale, though, it may open a new paradigm into how chatbots are created, or at least call into question the beliefs that have been held by big tech companies that AI is a vast, lengthy, and expensive project.
Oh, indeed. But thank you for going over the ins and outs of all the news, and the last part, very interesting to learn more about DeepSeek. Well, we'll check in with you in hour number 2. Haley, thank you.
See you in a bit.
And we're due for a song break right around now. This is, as requested by Benny, All of My Life by Pagwan.
너무 힘들어 삶에 지고 되는 것도 없고 가족도 안 보이고 언제부턴가 나도 중요하지 않고 없진 않지만 더 많이 가져야 사랑도 이어갈 수 있는 이 세상에서 All of my life You are all of my life 그러고 보면 난 너를 만나 참 많이 변했어 꿈이 생기고 네가 가진 꿈도 이뤄주고 싶었어 나 그러려면 더 높은 곳에 올라가야만 했어 더 많은 것들을 가져야 가능했어 다 가질 때쯤 사랑보다 꿈이 더 커졌어 All of my life 내가 힘이 들 때 You are all of my life 네가 날 채웠는데 다른 어떤 걸로 나를 채워봐도 All of my life You are all of my life 채워지지가 않아 그렇게 우리 발에 맞고 간절했던 거잖아 이제 내 방에 가득한데 나도 아무것도 없는 방 안에서 넌 혼자 이렇게 주저앉아 울고 있었니 또 All of my life 넌 내 전부인데 이 모든 게 다 무슨 소용 있는데 어디선가 이 노래를 듣게 된다면 All of my life All of my life 네 얘기가 맞아
Welcome back. Well, that was a lovely song. Thank you for that song request. And by the way, I'm looking at some of your messages, and apparently, Drift Monkey, it seems like you're enjoying your little vacay or holiday here in Korea. So thank you for sending in your messages, and we'll try to get some of those up for you in just a little bit. And Leslie, oh, you missed us? Well, guess what? We missed you too. We did. And you know, it was a long holiday. It's all I'll say. It started off for me with an IV, and then I was on meds the whole week. But a lot of cooking involved as well, because can't ignore the family in that way. So we had lots of traditional Korean foods like tteokguk and all the different chuns. And then we had a very special way of doing, you know, like the money envelopes. Instead of the traditional bowing to your elders, we had a little of mini golf putting game where you wherever your ball landed is on a certain envelope, and inside the envelope, well, it was random money. So we did it that way. So it was a lot of fun. There were some tears, but I won't say who cried. Anyhow, for now though, we are going to get to Kat's pick for today. Well, as you heard about that plane and helicopter crash, that is one of the biggest news headlines around the world. So listen to this clip. This is from NBC News plus Sky News.
We are coming on the air with breaking news out of Washington. The FAA confirming an American Airlines regional jet has collided with a Black Hawk helicopter near Reagan National Airport. This happened just over an hour ago. Emergency officials say they're coordinating a search and rescue operation in the Potomac River. We don't have yet information about casualties, but the FAA says this American Airlines plane, which had left Kansas, collided in midair with that helicopter while on approach to a runway here at Reagan, DCA as it's known locally. I want to bring in our aviation correspondent, Tom Costello, who is joining us now. Tom, a very active situation. The FAA, the NTSB, local fire and emergency responders there as we speak.
Among the passengers on that jet were a group of skaters, their coaches, as well as their family returning from the U.S. Figure Skating Championships in Wichita, Kansas. Now, the chief executive of the Skating Club of Boston, Doug Ziegheib, has been speaking to the press this afternoon, and in the last few moments has told us that a number of people from the Skating Club of Boston were on that flight and have lost their lives.
Last night and into this morning, we were informed of a pretty horrific tragedy. To the best of our knowledge, 14 skaters returning home from the National Development Camp at Wichita, Kansas, put on by U.S. Figure Skating, were lost in the plane crash at Washington, D.C.
So it wasn't just the 14 figure skaters, obviously, with their family members, and also the cabin crew, the staff members, and 3 Army soldiers on that helicopter as well. So the investigation is just beginning, so we don't know exactly what happened. And let's not presume to know. This was Cat's Pick for today.
Stay tuned. You're listening to Morning Wave in Busan.
It is now time for Casey and Foreign Press Highlights
Good morning.
in a regular time slot, right?
Yeah, it's hard to wake up earlier.
Yes,
It's hard to wake up earlier.
as well, right? So, how are you? How was your Lunar New Year's the entire week thus far?
There was a lot of family time. I'll put it that
Good or
way.
bad?
A lot
bit
of
of
family time. A lot of family time. Love my family.
So, what was like the most memorable event?
Cooking together. Actually, I cooked. Because a lot of the time was me and my kids at home, and I made oyster stew.
Oyster stew?
It came out of My son was like, "I want to eat oysters." Okay, so
Like gultang? Ooh.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes,
so
yes.
things like that. It was fun.
Ooh.
That was fun.
That was fun.
That part was fun.
So you say that
Yes,
part.
that
Well,
part was fun.
Come on, you got to share. What part was not fun?
When you have 2 kids in the house, for an entire week, they tend to fight a little bit. They tend to have disagreements.
Just a little?
More than a little, I'll be honest. Yes, but yes, the oyster stew.
Yes.
That was fun.
That was
and we
fun.
made pancakes together one morning. Yeah, things like that.
Okay, because
Cooking, for some reason.
we did a lot of cooking as well. We had the younger members of our, family making the mandu by hand.
Oh, really?
Because that kept them like busy.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
You
That's
gotta
what I'm
keep 'em
saying.
busy.
Yes.
Yes.
Cooking. Suddenly, it was like,
Right.
oh, okay, you do this, separately but equal. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, let's get to our first story. What do you have for us?
Well, this has been one of the biggest stories about Korea this week. It's all about the airplane that caught on fire here in the Gimhae airport. And there's a lot of articles kind of trying to figure out, what happened, the details of the information. So I decided to go with the New York Times article about it. And basically because it tried to set the scene of what was going on there and try to explain from the people's perspective that were there.
Yes.
So the headline of this article is Open the Door, How Dozens Fled an Inferno on a Plane. And, it sounds like kind of like a sensational headline, but that's because at the scene it was very
indeed.
It was hard to understand what was going on. There was a
Right.
lot of panic. So basically, right off the bat, they talk about it. They give you the details on Tuesday night at the airport in Busan. While millions were celebrating the Lunar New Year holiday, some were headed to Hong Kong as they were on this particular flight, which happened to be running late, which is actually a very important part of the story. You may have talked about this throughout the week, but the fact that it was running late kind of changed how things might have turned out. They said it was still on the ground minutes after the scheduled takeoff of 10:15 p.m. when passengers suddenly spotted a flame in the overhead bins in the plane's rear left. And of course, a lot of the headlines a lot of the articles from international publications focus on the fact that this is right on the heels of the last crash with Jeju Air, barely a month after that, which was
Right.
the worst aviation disaster on South Korean soil. So a lot of people at that scene, at that moment, probably had that in their minds.
Of course.
Right. So that's why this has been such a big focus in the international news.
Oh, of course, absolutely. So what else does this article mention?
So one thing they focus on was what the situation was exactly like at the time. So they quote a few people who have talked to the press, a lot of domestic press, and then it's been translated, obviously. So Shin Min-soo was one of those people. He told reporters that flames were coming out of the gaps between the overhead bin doors.
Okay.
And then people were screaming, trying to get out, but there was a line, so they were stuck. And what happens in that case? Panic, of course.
Right.
So he said he actually got up to try to put out the fire. But when he attempted to open the overhead bins, a flight attendant told him not to do that. Then Jung Yeon-jun was another person that was quoted talking to the local news here, said that a lot of smoke filled up inside. From that point on, passengers kept pushing forward and shouting, saying, open the door, That's the name of this headline. And then another passenger they quote was Kim Dong-wan, who, along with other passengers, told reporters that they actually opened some of the doors on their own and jumped onto the slides to escape.
Well, it kind of, from what I'm gathering, is it kind of sounds like some of the passengers had to kind of open the door on their own. That's what it sounds like.
That's what it sounds like in this article,
Right.
and that's one thing they particularly focus on, was how the cabin crew handled the situation. According to one local news agency here, however,
Right.
at least one of the emergency doors was opened by a flight attendant. But this is a kind of key thing that they focused on in the article. After the fire was first spotted, the cabin crew reported the situation to the captain, who followed procedures, shut off the plane's hydraulic and fuel systems, and according to the airline, declared an emergency evacuation. However, the passengers never heard the emergency declaration, and the airline said later that there was no time for a separate announcement.
And why is this important, though?
Well, they quote a lot of aviation experts in the article, and they say that this lack of announcement to passengers raises concerns about whether the crew actually followed the standard safety procedures. One of the people they talked to was Kim In-gyu, who is the managing director of the Korea Aerospace University's Flight Training Center. He says proper protocol requires the captain to announce emergency procedures on the cabin's intercom. And then from that point on, flight attendants should typically guide the passengers by using megaphones and give them clear, short commands.
Yes.
Another expert they talked to is Keith Tonkin, who is the aviation expert and managing director of aviation projects in Brisbane, Australia, who also says ideally the cabin crew would take charge of evacuating the aircraft, and in a best case scenario, passengers would be following directions.
So, I mean, looking back in hindsight, thus far, maybe not a best case scenario.
Yeah, according to what this article says, along with some of the other articles, and we'll hear a lot more about this. This is constantly being updated.
Yes.
But they did say in this article, after escaping, some passengers started grabbing their phones and filming, and then they shared these videos with a lot of these that you've been seeing on the news. And they do show in a lot of the videos that there's smoke billowing out of an emergency exit as the passengers slid down the emergency slides. And some of them were rolling off onto the tarmac with no one helping them to land, which is not supposed to happen. Mr. Kim said that the flight attendants should have moved the passengers away from the fire first. Then they should have gone down the slides first so they could help passengers come down.
I see.
And then direct
To
them away.
assist them.
Right. So apparently that didn't happen. And he also said finally that the airplane doors that were not emergency exits were supposed to be opened only by crew members. So like why were those able to be opened? So yeah, according to the experts that they talked to in the New York Times, not a best case scenario.
I see. Response from the airline.
In a statement, and again, this will be updated as the week goes on.
Yes.
So far, the airline said that the crew had followed protocol and apologized to the customers. They're still looking for the cause of the fire under investigation as of this article. And again, that'll come out. But the remarkable part is that everybody on the flight survived.
Oh, thank goodness.
Right. They said there were 3 passengers who sustained minor injuries during the evacuation process. 4 flight attendants were briefly hospitalized after inhaling smoke. So that's kind of really fortunate that it turned out that way.
Yes. So, of course, we're going to follow this story for now.
Right.
Let's turn to our next story. What do you have for us?
This one is actually, it's a video article, which it's like a 25-minute video. This is posted on Al Jazeera, and it's all about Yeonpyeong, and that's the headline, Yeonpyeong living in the conflict zone of North and South Korea. So it's a part of a series that Al Jazeera does called 101 East, which focuses on a lot of things happening in Asia.
Sure.
And this was actually made by a local filmmaker in Korea, and it's a really interesting 25-minute video. It kind of gives you like 3 different segments, but the focus is showing this area of South Korea, which for like basically the 80 years after the division of North and South Korea, how people have adjusted, how, life is particularly interesting there or, difficult. And basically they're saying that, even though this was 80 years on, those living on these islands of Yeonpyeong and Baekmyeong-do have still basically suffered the consequences of the government and political interactions between the 2 countries. And one of the focuses is Yeonpyeong, which was attacked by North Korea in 2010. And since that time, people still living there, they kind of focus on that in the video, how every kind of sound, every kind of noise is kind of a trigger for like, oh, what's going on?
Oh,
like any kind of loud sound is like, is something happening?
Right.
So I can't imagine what that's like. But they also feature a part of the video on the Baekmyeong-do fishermen who were actually abducted by North Korea about 50 years ago. And then when they were returned to South Korea, they were accused of espionage. So that has had repercussions on their particular families since that time.
So the abductees, are they still facing these? What kind of issues are they facing?
They talked to the daughter-in-law of one of the abductees, who's now basically in her 70s.
Okay.
So she says her children still are not able to find good jobs because of the accusations of spying, which might sound fantastic, but that's the case. And there is featured in this video a lawyer and a human rights activist who basically they are pursuing cases on behalf of these families so that the truth of their situation can kind of come into the light and also that their families will finally be treated fairly. That's a big part of the video.
Sure. So why are they being mistreated? Is it people still think they have ties to communist North Korea?
There was that was kind of suggested at the time they were returned.
Okay.
And it's really fascinating. So when they were actually taken to North Korea, they were paraded around North Korea and only shown like the best things in North Korea at that time. They were shown like the best food, the best buildings, the best things, kind of to show like, if you live here, this is what you get.
Yes.
And then they were returned to South Korea. And they eventually became too scared to talk about anything. They didn't want to talk about their experience. They didn't want to give their opinion on anything political because they were kind of, by the government here, used as part of like anti-communist and anti-North Korean propaganda. It was kind of conferred upon them that they were not smart and not educated people. And the fact that they were, taken so easily by North Korea. There's a whole lot in the video. And yeah.
Well, people can check that video out.
Yes.
Along with the story that you mentioned on the onset in the New York Times as well. So thank you for going over some really interesting stories about Korea from a different perspective. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, you too.
All right, everybody. This was Casey. It's time to wrap up hour number 1 with this song. This is 사랑인가요 by Jay and Howard. So enjoy. I'll be back at 8.
언제였던 건지 기억나진 않아 자꾸 내 머리가 너로 어지럽던 시작 한두 번씩 떠오르던 생각 자꾸 늘어가서 조금 당황스러운 이 마음 별일이 아닐 수 있다고 사소한 마음이라고 내가 내게 자꾸 말을 하는 게 어색한 거 사랑인가요 그대 나와 같다면 시작인가요 마음이 자꾸 그대 사랑한대요 온 세상이 듣도록 소리치네요 왜 이제야 들리죠 서로를 만나기 위해 이제야 사랑 찾았다고 지금 내 마음은 설명하려 해도 네가 내가 되어 마음을 느끼는 방법뿐인데 이미 난 네 안에 있는 걸
Your Bridge to the World.
Hi, this is Catherine. Can you hear me?
Yes, Louise here.
Yes. So I do want to confirm you're Dr. Louise. And then can you pronounce your last name for me, please?
Bauer.
Bauer, got it.
Pronounce it like Bauer.
Okay, Bauer. Bauer. So what's going to happen is we're going to go live with you in about 24 minutes from now. It is a live show, so that timeline is fluid, just to give you a heads up on that.
Yeah.
So let me see if the optics are okay. Can you sit away from the camera just a little bit? Yes, so our producer says that looks much better. And the sound quality, can you say something for us right now?
Hi, my name is Louise Bauer from the University of Sydney.
Okay, perfect. So after our test call, if you can mute your mic and then unmute it in about 19 or 20 minutes, and our producer, she's going to remind you through the Zoom chat box.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, we're good to go. I look forward to our interview.
Okay, and I'll now go to mute.
Yes, perfect.
어린이 교통사고 피해자 수는 지난 3년 평균 약 9만 명. 특히 어린이 보호구역 안전 기준이 강화된 이후에도 어린이 보호구역 내 사고는 지속적으로 발생하고 있습니다. 스쿨존에서는 반드시 시속 30km 이하 서행, 스쿨존 내 불법 주정차 금지, 차량 출발 전 앞뒤 좌우 살피는 습관으로 어린이가 안전한 도시를 만듭니다. 참, 운전 중 휴대전화 사용은 모두에게 위험합니다. 우리 모두를 위한 교통안전, 나부터 실천하면 모두가 안전해집니다. 어린이가 안전하게 뛰어놀 수 있는 부산. 아이 키우기 좋은 도시는 우리 모두의 미래이자 희망입니다. 이 캠페인은 어린이가 안전한 부산을 만드는 은행, B&K 부산은행과 함께합니다.
These are the guidelines for action for people in the event of an apartment building fire. First, if evacuation is possible in the event of a fire in your home, move to a safe place in a low posture by using stairs. And if evacuation is difficult, move to an evacuation space or block the door gap and call 119 for rescue. Second, if a fire breaks out in another home and no flames or smoke enters your home, wait inside the home, call 119, and act according to the announcement. Third, if flames and smoke come into your home in the event of a fire in another home, check to see if evacuation is possible and then evacuate or request rescue. This was brought to you by the Ministry of the Interior and Safety and the National Fire Agency.
살림꾼 김지우의 살림템 추천. 창틀 바람막이로 실내 온기 지켜줄게. 포장은 다회용기로, 플라스틱 거절한다. 우리 식재료로 유통을 줄이면 탄소를 줄일 수 있어. 이 모든 건 기후위기에 대응하는 지구 살림템. 여러분도 함께해요. 공익광고협의회.
The time is now 8 o'clock.
Good morning,
Dynamic Busan.
Yeah, you're waking up. Time to shake it up. Tell the world good morning and find out what's going on.
Well, hi there, folks. There's everything from comedy to lively chat to music.
Broadcasting from a room about the size of your closet.
All calls are recorded. What show is this?
Live from Korea's dynamic city, this is Morning Wave in Busan.
I'm sorry, who'd you say you were?
It's now 8 o'clock and this is news highlights. All 67 dead in Washington, D.C. plane and helicopter crash. All 67 people involved in the American Airlines flight are presumed dead in the collision with a Black Hawk helicopter over the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, which is leading the probe into the collision, hopes to have a preliminary report ready within 30 days. U.S. President Donald Trump offered his condolences, but also blamed diversity rules under his predecessors for unqualified air traffic controllers while offering no evidence. Air Busan plane fire investigation delayed by fuel. The investigation has begun into the Air Busan passenger plane that caught fire at Kimhae International Airport, but it has faced delays over safety issues due to the fuel stored inside the craft. The Aviation and Railway Accident Investigation Board, under the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, said that it will assess the risk factors with the French Bureau of Inquiry and Analysis for Civil Aviation Safety before determining a date for the on-site inspection. Investigators retrieved black boxes from the jet earlier in the day, according to officials. Lee Sang-min says cabinet members against Yoon's martial law declaration. Former Interior Minister Lee Sang-min reportedly told the police that cabinet members at the meeting immediately before the December 3rd martial law declaration had objected to the president's decision to declare martial law. This statement goes against former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun's testimony at the Constitutional Court that some cabinet members agreed with the president. Acting President Choi Sang-mok also reportedly told the police that he doesn't see the meeting at the time as a cabinet meeting. Choi is expected to veto the second special counsel bill into President Yoon's insurrection allegations. Hostage handover continues in Gaza's ceasefire deal. The Israeli military confirmed 7 hostages, 2 Israelis and 5 Thai nationals, have been handed to the Red Cross in Gaza by Hamas. In return, Israel released 110 Palestinians held in Israeli prisons. It is a third release of hostages since the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas began on January 19th. 82 hostages are still being held by Hamas. The hostage handover was quite chaotic as huge crowds gathered in Khan Yunis, drawing condemnation from the Israeli government over the savagery of Hamas. Israel delayed the release of the Palestinian prisoners in response. Kim Ha-sung signs $29 million deal with Tampa Bay Rays. South Korean infielder Kim Ha-sung has signed a surprise 2-year deal worth $29 million with the Tampa Bay Rays. U.S. outlets reported that the package includes an opt-out after the first season, letting Kim to sign as a free agent after the season. Kim posted a cumulative batting average of 0.242, hitting 47 home runs during his 4 years with the San Diego Padres, becoming the first South Korean and the second Asian player to win a coveted Gold Glove in Major League Baseball in 2023. And this was News Highlights. All right, it's now time for Wagga Wagga, which means Haley's back.
Hello.
Yes, so we're going to begin this segment with some issues connected to the Air Busan plane fire. So before we start, I want to make it clear that the authorities, they're still trying to figure out the cause of the fire. It's early on in the investigation, but we do want to address some issues that have come out of the story, especially where it pertains to what we as potential passengers should know about safety.
Right, and just like what Casey said and what I said in News Digest early on in hour number 1, basically the point right now is that we are getting a lot of, they said versus they said statements from the passengers.
Right.
But so first, the witnesses say that when the fire broke out, some passengers opened the exit door themselves and tried to evacuate. This is false. So yes, passengers did open the door physically, but according to Air Busan's press release, it was after they were asked to do so by flight attendants. So it was under their guidance/supervision, which is basically what needs to happen under aviation safety laws.
Right.
So according to those who work in the airline industry, it is very important to note that passengers should not open the plane's doors without instructions by the flight crew. So one employee of Air Busan wrote online anonymously. This was on the professionals, quote unquote, the blind website, where you are anonymous, but you do have to verify your account via your work email. So we know that they are a verified employee. That if there was a fire outside the plane or if the engine had been running and the door opened without the flight crew's instruction, as some reports have implied or some passengers have implied, then worst case scenario, it could have sucked people into the engine because it would have still been running. So by the way, under Aviation Safety Act, Article 23, passengers cannot operate the aircraft's exits, doors, or any of the mechanics without instruction. And violating this can result in under 10 years in prison. So it is really important to note that while we might be seeing some witness statements saying that passengers open the doors, you're not supposed to unless the flight crew asks you to.
Right. And thus far, according to Air Busan, their, staff instructed them to do so. So that's what we know for now. We don't know all the little minute details yet. And one possible cause of the fire that's been mentioned is a portable charger that came out into the news very early on, right?
Right.
Once again, we don't know if this is what really caused the fire. But, these portable chargers, they have been known to cause plane fires, correct?
Right. So once again, the whole point of what we're covering right now isn't to point blame because, again, the aviation authorities have not even been able to go inside the plane for their full inspection due to the fuel.
Right.
But we are raising some awareness onto other issues that may have potentially been pointed to as a cause or have caused other fires in the past. So there are about 5 to 6 fires every year from these portable chargers on airplanes, 보조 배터리. So according to the Land Infrastructure and Transport Ministry data from last October and the figures released by Democratic Party lawmaker Lee Yeon-hee, there were 6 portable battery-related fires on planes in 2023 and 5 in just the first 8 months of last year.
Okay.
So these batteries are, if you've ever gone on an airplane, you know, they have like a little kind of graphic of things that you're not supposed to put in a checked baggage, 붙이는 짐, and those include things like lighters and batteries, and you know, your name does get called on the intercom if you left them by an accident. So these are what's called specialized or high-risk air cargo.
Yes.
And the passenger must carry it onto the flight with him or herself. So the reason being that if there is a fire, it can be put out immediately, as opposed to there being a fire in the cargo part of the plane. And in the previous 11 cases from last year and the year before, the fires were extinguished within the first 5 minutes.
I see.
So airlines have their own manuals. So they first use a fire extinguisher and then completely submerge the battery in question in water or another form of non-alcoholic liquid. So in many cases, the fires happen when the batteries, once again, not particularly in the Air Busan case, we don't know yet, but in most of these 11 cases, the batteries were apparently wedged in between seats because these days those batteries are really small and the pressure from, you know, both sides of the battery, it can cause them to overheat.
Yes.
So passengers who do carry these on board should take particular care, make sure it's kind of within your line of sight, and make sure it's not being like pressurized by anything else.
Yes, yes. So great tips. Things that we do need to know about. All right, now we're going to go to the U.S. for our next story. The White House press secretary, by definition of his or her job, is one of the most public faces of the administration. So let's meet President Donald Trump's press secretary and basically starting a new era for the White House press room.
Right. So Carolyn Levitt, whom we will hear from for the next coming, months, years, she is 27. She's the youngest person of the Trump cabinet and the youngest person ever to hold this position of press secretary.
Okay.
So in her debut press briefing that lasted about 47 minutes, she fielded questions on critical issues, including a freeze on federal grants and loans and the administration's early moves on deporting undocumented migrants.
Okay.
So pundits say under President Trump, who we know from Trump 1.0, he speaks for himself, often on social media.
Yes.
So the press secretary's role would be to interpret his message to more of a legacy media terms and make sure they align with the larger White House objectives.
Yes.
So for the personal side of her story, which has also garnered attention, she was the first person in her family to go to college. She got a White House internship during Trump's first administration, and she impressed then press secretary to basically be nominated for this job. She's married to Nicholas Robert, who's a real estate tycoon for 32 years her senior, and the couple had their first child last July, and she famously apparently went right back to work.
Yes, and so that's who she is. The White House press pool, though, is definitely going through some changes too.
Right, so we are not only going to see someone significantly younger at the podium, but also perhaps on the other side of the podium. So that's because podcasters and social media influencers, so single person media, they will be permitted to apply for White House credentials. So basically it's like a press badge that gives you easier access to events and to the regular briefings. So this is a move that's intended to open up the White House to significantly increase the number of journalists that have White House access and not just legacy media. And we know that President Trump, and even when he was not the president, in between his now 2 terms, he's had a tricky relationship with some parts of the media whom he has called, fake news generators.
Yes.
So he, in his re-election campaign, he also famously kind of catered to that side of new media, talking to several podcasters and influencers, including many directed at conservative audiences. And this is kind of credited as a reason where he won a lot of the younger votes.
Yes, indeed. That's where we're going to leave that story. For now, though, we need a kind of a heartwarming story. We've had some
accidents, tragedies, and right. So this is a story that has similarities to the story of one Jean Valjean in Les Miserables by Victor Hugo.
Yes.
So this was earlier this month, January 5th, if you remember, terrible cold wave going on. And back then, a Jinjeop police precinct in Namyangju received a call from a bakery saying that this guy came in, stole some bread, and ran off. So the police went there, checked the CCTV footage, and saw that a man, presumably in his 70s, he did indeed take 2 loaves of bread and walked out.
Yes.
So the police actually, and this is what's incredible about the so-called K-safety, because there are so many CCTVs everywhere, they were just from that footage able to trace his movements by other road surveillance cameras and basically identify him. And they kind of, in their systems, but they did find his last registered address, but when they went to that home, he no longer lived there. So the 2 patrol officers later, 2 days later, they found this man living under a bridge in, temporary shelter would be the most generous way of putting it.
Right.
It was basically like wooden dowels and like sticks with vinyl. With plastic, not even tarp, but like plastic bags. And the structure had eviction notices from the city. So the officers, they recognized that he was obviously in need of help, and they could have just easily arrested him because he was wanted for theft, and even living in an unregistered structure. But recognizing what kind of a situation he may be in, the man told them that he had been homeless for about 3 months, and he couldn't pay rent, so he was evicted from his previous home, and he hadn't eaten for several days when he did take the bread from the bakery. So the 2 officers actually, they didn't pass the case on to the rest of the system, but instead they themselves went to the local government offices and community centers so he could get the help he needed. So right now he has gotten the emergency welfare funding and food. He's getting the support he needs in terms of medical care, and they're trying to help him out with finding a job, and he's currently living at a 고시원 that the local office has provided for him.
Wow, so they did not pass the buck.
Right.
Good on them. So a great story to end it on. Thank you for that. And of course, we'll check in with you on Monday. Thank you, Haley.
Have a great weekend.
All right, now it's time for your updated traffic and weather. It is now 8:15. This is your traffic report. There is congestion reported on Hwangyeondaero from the Munjeon intersection to the Chamber of Commerce intersection. Also looking backed up on Suyeonglo from Gwangan intersection to Suyeong intersection. And next we have some traffic reported on Yeonsuro from Suyeong intersection to Mangmi intersection. It's currently 0 and it's expected to go up to 11 today. Tomorrow and on Sunday, you can expect lows of 6 degrees and highs of 10 degrees, but expect some light rain from early tomorrow morning through Sunday morning. This was your traffic and weather. And this is Whitney Houston's I Have Nothing.
Cause I'll never change all my colors for you. Take my love, I'll never ask for too much. Just all that you are and everything that you do. To look very much further. I don't wanna have to go where you don't follow. I won't hold it back again. This passion inside can't run from myself. There's nowhere to hide. But don't make me close one more door. I don't wanna hurt anymore. Stay in my arms if you dare. Must I imagine you there? Don't walk strength of your love. I never knew love like I knew it with you. Will a memory survive? One I can hold on to. I don't really need to look very much further. I don't wanna have to go where you don't follow. I'll hold it back again. This passion inside, I can't run from myself. There's nowhere to hide. Your love I remember forever. But don't make me close one more door. I don't wanna hurt anymore. Stay in my arms if you dare. I must stay, imagine you there. Don't walk away from me. I have nothing, nothing, nothing. Don't make me close one more door. I don't wanna hurt anymore. Stay in my arms if you dare. I must stay, imagine you there. Don't walk away from me. No, don't walk away from me. Don't you dare walk away from me. I have nothing, nothing, nothing if I don't have you. If I don't have you.
Welcome back, everybody. So today's text topic, real simple, like how did you spend your holiday? What were some of the highlights? So in hour number one, we had some of Haley's photos. And actually, I took a lot of photos, but I only sent one or two to our producer of a game we played for the Lunar New Year 세배. We call it the putting game. If anybody knows our family, you'll probably know that we're kind of heavy into the golf. We enjoy a bit of golf. So what we did was we set up this putting little strip and we put down various envelopes full of different denominations of money. 봉투 안에 돈 금액이 다 달랐어요. 그리고 그 퍼팅이 길고 정확한 게 아니라 지금 사진을 띄울 건데요. So if you see, that is my home. And yes, so that's a putting green. And I know you can't see the writing, but on every envelope, it's in a different language. It says Happy Lunar New Year. I think one said something like Feliz Nuevo Año, if I'm not mistaken, like in Spanish, and then in Japanese, and in all the different various languages. So if your ball lands on the envelope, you get the money in the envelope. 하지만 걸쳐서 딱 그 정확하게 봉투 위에 딱 볼이 착지를 해야 되고 아니면 꽝이에요. 그래서 눈물들 좀 흘렸어요. A couple days ago. 그리고 1,000원에 이제 올라가면 you have another chance. 찬스를 한 번 더 가질 수 있도록 해서 계속했어요. 근데 2명은 울었어요. 누구라고 얘기하지는 않을게요. Yes, so yes, I did not cry, but a couple of the younger members, they were verging on tears. But we did it very fair and square, and the money that was not 그 돈 이제 다 그거 따지 못한 상태에서는 그걸로 우리 뽑기 아시죠? You know, like the pick me with the animal stuffed animals. So we went there and we spent it on, you know, just group activities. That's what we did for ours. And Leslie wants to know who was the best putter, who got the most money. My brother-in-law. My brother-in-law. He actually got his ball on one of the envelopes that had the most money. It wasn't a lot, but it was the biggest amount. And let's also have photos from a Drift Monkey sending in his photos through our Kakao Talk. So these are just a few of his photos, a couple of his photos that he took. I believe these are from Seoul, if I'm not mistaken. And this one, I wonder where this is from. I see Boogie. So it has to be, I'm thinking, 서구예요? And I see the little opera house looking thing in the background. So it's near the Busan port. Thank you for sending in those photos. Love it. All right. So for now, though, we're going to get to our special interview. You know, for years, obesity has been defined using body mass index, BMI. In Korea, we know it as 체질량 지수. In Korea, though, a BMI of 25 is considered obese. In Western countries, some countries have it as 30. However, athletes are often above the standard because BMI may not accurately reflect muscle mass or overall health status. So experts argue that BMI alone does not accurately reflect health risks, and maybe a new definition proposed by an international commission considers how excess body fat affects the body, and that includes waist circumference as a key measure. 그러니까 허리 둘레까지 얘기하고 있는데요. So this change could improve obesity diagnosis and treatment for millions worldwide. So let's find out more. Joining us is Dr. Louise Bauer, professor of child and adolescent health at the University of Sydney and consultant pediatrician of weight management services at the Children's Hospital in Westmead, Australia. Hi, thanks for joining us.
Greetings. Hello. Good morning.
Yes. So, Dr. Bauer, first of all, we do need kind of like a textbook definition. How is BMI, body mass index, measured, and what does it measure?
Well, you need a measure of weight in kilograms and height in meters, and it's weight over the square of the height. And that's called BMI. And it's a simple measure that lots of clinicians and people in the general community use. It's been used for the last couple of centuries to look at populations of people. But in the last few decades, it's been thought maybe we could use this more to look at individual people. There are strengths and there are disadvantages about that. I think it's really good when you use it to look at populations. You know, let's look at the BMI, average BMI, or the spread of BMI in this country versus that. Why is there a difference? What's happened in this country, South Korea, from the 1950s to the late, to 2000 to 2025, what changes have happened? And that can tell you a lot. Where we need to be somewhat careful is when we use it just for an individual. And you rightly pointed out that it's sort of a measure of body fat, but not completely. There's a bit of certainly validation work showing that it can be reasonably good for working out body fat. So those with a higher BMI tend to have a higher body fat, lower BMI. But it's not as simple as that, as you rightly point out.
Yes. So thanks for clarifying, Dr. Bauer. So in terms of the new definition as proposed by this global commission, how is this different from what we're used to?
Well, it really builds on that. It's not so different that people won't be familiar with it. So what we're saying is, first of all, you need to work out if a person with a high BMI indeed has a high body fat, whether it's just a high BMI. And you rightly pointed out that there can be particularly athletes, people who do a lot of strength training and so on, can have a high BMI but actually have a low body fat. When I'm talking to New Zealand and Pacific audiences, I talk about the rugby teams who are big, muscly guys. They'll all have a high BMI, but they're very fit. They'll have a low body fat, but they've got lots of muscle. So you want to make sure that you're not including people like that. So we're saying, yes, in everyday clinical practice, yes, still continue to use BMI, but be careful we prefer people to include a measure of fat distribution. So that could be waist circumference or a waist to height ratio.
Yes.
And that can be done in most everyday clinical practices. And some people have access to more sophisticated body composition measurements. So things such as the DEXA measure, a DEXA scan, dual energy X-ray absorptiometry. Most clinicians don't have access to that, but if you do, that can give you a much more accurate measure of body fat. So we're saying, well, first of all, work out if somebody has a high body fat, not just solely based on BMI. And then the really important second step is, does this person have health problems related to the high body fat? We all know people who may go around with a high body fat and their parents may have done the same, but they live healthy, active lives, and that's not necessarily a problem. We wouldn't call that clinical obesity. But the people who have health problems related to their high body fat, that's what we're calling clinical obesity. And that's a bit that's really new here, the concept that where we start to worry. Of course, it's not just, so we've come up with a range of criteria for adults, 18 criteria for adults and 13 for children and young people. So, for example, if you have a high body fat and you have high blood pressure, you have arthritis in your knees because of the impact of weight on your joints, if you have problems sleeping and breathing at night because of sleep apnea, those, or if you have heart failure because of obesity, those things, all of course say you've got clinical obesity. But if you have a high body fat and you're really well and healthy and get around and have no problems with activities of daily living, we don't call that clinical obesity, but we're calling it preclinical obesity.
I see. And so why is this distinction important between clinical obesity versus the preclinical obesity, to put, for lack of better words, to put people in different categories? Is it important?
I think it helps clinicians and individuals to work out if they need really active treatment or not. Now, mind you, there are people with high body fat who don't have health problems, but who may well be at high risk. Maybe their family members have got type 2 diabetes. Maybe there's a family history of premature heart disease. They're going to say, well, I may want to deal with my preclinical obesity a little bit earlier than another person. Another person may have preclinical obesity and all of their family members live to their 80s and 90s and everyone gets on and has no real health concerns.
Yes.
Well, they're going to be less worried. But what we want to do is to be able to also say, well, the people we want to particularly focus upon are those who've already got health problems. So we want to get away from just the BMI measure or the waist measure to thinking, what are your health risks?
Yes.
What's happening with your health and well-being? Let's focus on that. And I think that will help deal with assumptions that people of high weight inevitably have health problems. That may not be the case, but it will also help people who have high weight to be able to have the conversation with their doctor about, well, I want to be able to deal with these other health issues. Are they related to my high body fat? Maybe we can think of this in an integrated way. So we're trying to bring this together and actually say, this is actually being caused by the high weight. Let's be able to treat this seriously. We hope that it will decrease stigma, and we hope it will help people to have more nuanced, more thoughtful conversations around treatment options.
Well, what about for people on the other end of the spectrum? I know it's not on our slate of questions, but there are many people here, especially in Korea, who on the outside look very slim, and we call them kind of skinny fat, meaning they're, they appear thin, but they might have a higher, amount of fat in their body because they don't work out for whatever reason or genetics. But and might they not also be prone to health issues as well?
That's exactly right. And it's why we want to get away from a strict BMI or body fat definition. You're quite right. People of South Asian or East Asian background are at higher risk of storing body fat around the abdomen or around their internal organs. And that can cause a number of health problems, including heart disease, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, and many other consequences. And we need to take this very seriously. It's why so that's why we include a measure of fat distribution. So those people will tend to have an increased abdominal fat. They'll tend to have a high waist circumference.
Sure.
And if you did a sophisticated body composition measurement, such as DEXA, you'd actually pick up that there was abnormal body fat in that abdomen.
I see.
And that puts them into a high risk category. Now, guess what? As a doctor, I should always take a history, do an examination, and do investigations. I think that would include family history. And I work in Sydney, so I do have quite a lot of East Asian and South Asian patients.
Yes.
And I have a higher risk, a higher threshold for a lower threshold for investigating for, say, diabetes and fatty liver disease than, say, someone of Pacific background. But I need to take all of those things into account. So you're quite right. Indian subcontinent, East Asian background, higher risk at a lower BMI.
Yes.
Usually because of a higher body fat. And that's why we're particularly interested in actually making sure this is well known within the broader Asian community, because we think this will help people be able to seek treatment at potentially at an earlier stage for significant underlying problems related to abnormal body fat.
Yes. And so, Dr. Bauer, how do you foresee the Commission's report changing how obesity is handled in the medical world and just for lay people also? Do you think this is going to change our thinking?
I think it will over time. Of course, I've been living with this report or the versions of it for the last 3 years. Of course, I'd like everything to change tomorrow. It isn't going to happen that quickly.
Right.
It's going to take quite a lot of education of doctors, nurses, allied health professionals. It's going to take lots of thinking. I think it's going to be very important for people from South Korea, in fact, the whole of Asia, to be actively involved in thinking, what does this mean for us in helping people of living in this region of the world? And it will take, I think, some years for this to become routine clinical practice, because we need education of the health professions, but also of the general community to start to think more about, if I were your listeners, I'd be saying, well, let's look at my family history. Let's look at the risks that members of my family have. That will be a bit of a pointer. But also, when I talk to my doctor, I might want to think about not just my BMI, but actually where is the fat distributed? And so that's part of a thoughtful conversation with your doctor about risk.
Yes. And for a final wrap-up question today, Dr. Bauer, for us as we try to assess our own, obesity levels, when should we be kind of worried? I mean, I'm sure many people step on the scale, but, weight is not the only measurement of how healthy one is, right?
Well, that's exactly right. And we were talking about some of the challenges with BMI. Waist circumference is a thoughtful measure, and if your waist is more than half your height, that might be a bit of a risk, a warning flag. But also think about your family history risk and other health problems you have. It's your health and well-being rather than a measurement that's a really important issue. So if you have these other health issues, or if family members have that, you might want to have that conversation with your doctor earlier than another person might.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for schooling us, for giving us this wealth of information to think about. Thank you, Dr. Bauer.
Thank you.
This was Dr. Louise Bauer, and we talked about obesity, 비만, and how it's being redefined. So it's not just about, body mass index, but it's really about how the fat is distributed throughout your body. And I definitely hope that this was as interesting it was to me as for the rest of you. All right, we're going to get to our next song. So this is We Don't Talk Anymore by Charlie Puth featuring Selena Gomez.
We don't talk anymore. We don't talk anymore. We don't talk anymore like we used to do. We don't laugh anymore. What was all of it for? Ooh, we don't talk anymore like we used to do. I just heard you found the one you've been looking for. I wish I would have known that wasn't me. 'Cause even after all this time I still wonder why I can't move on just the way you did so easily. Don't wanna know the kind of dress you're wearing tonight, if he's holding on to you so tight, the way I did before. I overdosed, should've known your love was a game. Now I can't get you out of my brain. Oh, it's such a shame that we don't talk anymore. We don't talk anymore. We don't talk anymore like we used to do. We don't laugh anymore. What was all of it for? Ooh, we don't talk anymore like we used to do.
I just hope you're lying next to somebody who knows how to love you like me. There must be a good reason that you're gone. Every now and then I think you might want me to come show up at your door, but I'm just too afraid that I'll be wrong. Don't wanna know if you're looking into her eyes, if she's holding on to you so tight, the way I did before. I overdosed, should've known your love was a game. Now I can't get you out of my brain. Oh, it's such a shame
that we don't talk anymore. We don't talk anymore. We don't talk anymore like we used to do. We don't laugh anymore. What was all of it for? Oh, we don't talk anymore like we used to do. Dress you're wearing tonight, if he's giving it to you just right, the way I did before.
I overdosed, should've known your love was a game. Now I can't get you out of my brain.
Oh, it's such a shame that we don't talk anymore. We don't talk anymore. We don't talk anymore like we used to do. We don't laugh anymore. What was all of it for? Oh, we don't talk anymore like we used to do. We don't talk anymore.
The way I did before.
We don't talk anymore. Can't get you out of my brain.
Oh, it's such a shame
that we don't talk anymore.
Get your local up-to-date news from Korea and abroad right here on Morning Wave in Busan with Catherine. Stay tuned.
It's time for Masana. What in the world? Now
What in
I'm
the
back
world?
to his regular time.
Yes, I was expecting something a little bit before that.
How are you?
Yes, good morning. Yes, I'm good.
How was your Lunar New Year week?
Full of sleep and rest.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Tell me like the highlight. What was the best thing you ate or the best thing you did during the last week?
Well, actually, we had planned a party with a few people, but a lot of their folks got sick, and so they had to.
Everybody's sick. That's true.
The big party was cancelled, so it was a lot of rest. But I still went out and had raw fish, which I said I was going to have. So we had some raw fish. My son likes raw fish now, which is good.
Is it good or bad? Like, I always say that it's kind of good and bad because it's like, it's good. You're like expanding their taste buds,
Yeah.
their palate. On the other hand, it's like less raw fish for you.
Correct. So that's why I hesitated.
You're like, is it a good thing?
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah, the day my kids discovered they liked raw fish was a sad day for us. Yes.
Yes.
All right, let's jump into our stories.
Did you have a text topic today? Or?
Oh, text topic. We did it already.
Oh, okay.
It's about your
just that?
holiday.
Oh.
Yeah, like what was the highlight?
Highlight. Okay.
Ask me what my highlight was, aside from the putting.
I heard the putting.
Putting.
Is it just putting, or do you ever go to screen golf?
Oh,
or
we
anything?
do all the time.
Okay.
Oh,
what's your?
Oh, this week. Oh, since oh my gosh, you asked.
Yeah.
This week with my partner, we did a foursome, golf playing.
Yes, of course.
And then of course,
Yeah.
and then we scored 4 birdies in a row.
No way.
So our score was -6.
Is that the one where you take turns?
We
hitting?
take turns.
Oh,
yes.
nice.
Yes. So I had a good week.
4 birdies in a row. Wow.
Yes.
So you were under par at the end? or-
Yeah, we were 6 under par.
Amazing.
I had a good week.
Wow.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay, now
Well
we can
done.
get into our stories.
Okay. I'm going to start off with death.
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 Well, it's something that smells like death.
Okay.
At Sydney's Royal Botanic Gardens and a lot of botanic gardens around the world at this time of the year,
Right.
people have been queuing for hours not to see a rare treasure or stunning exhibit,
Right.
but to sniff the infamous corpse flower.
Oh, the stinky one.
Yeah, the one that smells like dead people.
Oh.
Yeah, it's called the. Would you like to pronounce it?
Okay. Since you're throwing me under the bus. Amorphophallus titanum.
Yes,
Okay.
perfect.
Okay.
Or as fans have nicknamed her, Putricia.
Not Patricia.
Not Patricia.
Putrid, like
Putricia.
Putricia. I like
Yes.
it. Okay.
Which, let's be honest, sounds less like a flower, more like a villain
Aw.
in a soap opera. Watch out, Putricia's coming. So why the fuss? Why is everybody fussing over this?
Yeah, why?
It's because this diva only blooms once every 7 years.
That's right.
Okay, so around the world at this time, a lot of the flowers are blooming. And so you won't get another story from me from this until 7 years later.
We won't hear about Putricia.
No.
Putricia.
Yeah, I've got a little photo of her.
Yes.
It's her. And it looks, as it's explained,
There she is.
very phallic. So it's an Amorphophallus titanum, big phallus. So don't worry, it's versatile. Sometimes some people say it smells like sweaty socks.
Ew.
Others,
Ew.
overripe
Oh.
garlic.
Oh, gosh.
Some people that forgotten Tupperware in the back of your fridge.
Oh, and it has to have some sort of dairy in it, right?
Yes, it has to have some dairy in it. But a lot of, I know the detective series, they've used this flower as an excuse to, instead of dead bodies, they say, oh, there's a dead body back there, but then they find it's a flower.
Right.
So the gardens actually debated handing out vomit bags to visitors,
Vomit.
but they decided against it. So yes.
Oh, that's gross.
But as I said, it's not just local; it's sensational. It's a global sensation.
It is a sensation.
and sensational. I think it's something I won't want to experience. I'd rather.
I want to smell it just once. Just
Really?
a little whiff. Just a little bit.
I guess Mida. Okay.
I have a pretty strong stomach. I think I could handle it.
Yes. So anyway, on to our next story.
Next story.
And I hope you're all ears. My first pun for the story,
Ears?
because this next
Ears,
story
okay.
is elephantastic. It's
Are we
about
talking about elephants?
elephants.
Yes.
It's about a court case so big you'll need a trunk to carry the
Oh
details.
gosh, here we go with the Ajagags, a trunk.
That's right. We're talking about a group of pachyderms in Colorado.
In Colorado,
in
Leslie.
Colorado.
Yes, she's there.
Leslie's there?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, Leslie.
Okay.
Who just found out they can't sue. Well, she'll know about this story then.
Maybe.
Yeah, she found out they can't sue for their release because they're not people. Shocking. Who knew?
Elephants.
Who knew? Elephants
Right.
aren't people.
Why are they in a lawsuit?
So that case was brought forward by an animal rights group hoping to send these 5 elephants called Missy, Kimba, Lucky, Lulu, and Jambo. Sounds more like a K-pop band. To a sanctuary.
Love their names.
Yeah. They argued that the elephants were unfairly detained in the zoo.
Unfairly detained.
in the zoo, describing it as a big top prison break in the making. So their weapon of choice, a little legal maneuver called habeas corpus, which is Latin for you may have the body. Although in this case, it's more like you may have the big body. You saw that one coming. But the court trumpeted its decision loud and clear. Elephants are not humans and therefore cannot file lawsuits.
Right.
Or people can't file it on their behalf. I guess that's what happens when you don't have the thumbs to sign the paperwork.
Thumbs.
The zoo's lawyers probably felt relieved when the judge ruled in their favor. Meanwhile, my last pun.
Okay.
The animal rights group is feeling irrelevant.
Irrelevant. Aw.
Okay.
That was funny.
Zoos. Do you like zoos, by the way?
You know, I have mixed feelings. When I was younger, I loved zoos. Now that I'm older, I don't know. It's like I understand the preservation of some species and the education part, but it depends, like how well they're taken care of,
Definitely.
how much space they have. Like, are they really being looked after, or is it just like, are they confined to these like terrible tiny cages?
Especially when they're on concrete. Like, that's not their natural habitat.
Right.
But when they're in concrete cages, if they're out in the on grass on fields, then sure. But otherwise, I have mixed feelings about it too.
Yes.
So, as I said, Missy, Kimber, Lucky, Lulu, and Jambo.
They're gonna have to stay.
Good luck. Yeah.
Okay.
Our last story.
Okay.
And you could call it a tale.
Like a gory tale?
Like a tale. Tale coming from China.
Oh, like a story from. Okay.
Both, actually.
Okay.
I'm using both my puns that are coming out.
Okay.
Where the internet's favorite paws enforcement officer, Fuzai, the corgi, is making headlines.
Corgi. Ooh.
For a crime that's downright rough.
Right. Why?
Sorry. This four-legged dynamo who sniffed out danger and won hearts is the first ever corgi police dog. Corgi police dog, a wonderful choice. But anyway, has been docked his end-of-year bonus.
Why?
So he doesn't get a bonus. Why? It turns out Fuzai was caught sleeping on the job.
No.
And marking his own food bowl as his territory. You know how
do
they...
we have a photo of Fuzai?
Yes, we do. So talk about a bold move. Now, Fuzai wasn't just any old dog on patrol with his short legs and big smile. He rocketed to fame for his explosive detection skills. So he was able to sniff out explosives.
Really?
So they were apparently not the kind of explosions we're talking about today.
Okay.
So he's been called a good boy for his stellar work in 2024. Treats, toys, getting those, even a shiny red flower. But then the drama.
What happened?
So in a viral video, his handler gently broke the news. Fuzai, you've been amazing this year, but you've let things go. Literally. So the snacks confiscated.
Oh, no.
Yes. So social media, of course, went wild and comments poured in faster than kibble at feeding time. One user barked out, poor Fuzai worked so hard only to lose his bonus. That's positively unfair.
With a PAW.
At least he didn't pee in his boss's bowl. That was one said. So
my gosh.
Give the good boy his snacks back. But it has a happy ending.
Can you imagine doing that if we're unhappy? We can't do that. That's like, we'd be arrested.
That's an image. That's an image we don't want in our heads. Okay. It has a happy ending, however.
Okay, good news.
So while Fuzai lost his end-of-year bonus, his handlers made up for it with a Lunar New Year feast. So we've got the end-of-year bonus, which is obviously December 31st. And then we've got the Lunar New Year, which just happened last week.
All right.
So they gave him a nice feast fit for a furry king. So what's the takeaway here? Even heroes need a nap. Yeah, so we all need a nap. You're a hero.
Yes. How many naps did you take?
Over the weekend?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. I can't count. So many. I'll be just watching, something on TV, and then I'll just be snoozing.
I had my first nap like yesterday.
Yeah.
Because it was like nonstop cooking.
Oh, wow.
We made like, I think we counted, we made like 400 dumplings.
Yes.
Like a mandu, Korean style mandu. And then we didn't do 7, we did 5 different kinds of chuns. And then we, of course, had to make the tteokguk.
Yeah.
And then for one meal, we ate in the whole time. I made like Chinese food, right? So I made like chili, shrimp. And then I made, Korean Chinese food. I made 짜장밥 from scratch.
Nice. Well
yeah,
done.
so it turned out really
Oh,
good.
you mean Korean Chinese food?
I said Korean Chinese.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
죄송합니다.
Yes. 짜장밥하고요.
네. 네.
And then what else did I make? It went on and on.
Oh, wow.
The food like gala, it went on for like 4 or 5 days.
No,
Right.
our cell phone was our cook this weekend, this past week. Finally,
Yes.
I just wanted to mention.
Yes.
I don't know if you've reported on the passing of Bob Uecker.
Who is?
He was a very famous major league broadcaster. He broadcasted right up until until just last year.
Right.
And he just passed away at the age of 90. And he was on the radio for 54 years. One of my favorite newscasters for the Milwaukee Brewers, but also for
54
Major League.
years.
So if you don't know who he is, do a search on him, enjoy the broadcasts. But every time one of these people passes away, I always ask you, can you make it to 54 years of broadcasting?
Can we make it to like
50
54 years on Earth? Is the question, I think.
that's not too far away. So.
Well, on that note, we're going to end it and send Vasana out.
Yes, TGIF.
Yes. But you'll be back for next week. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. It's time to wrap things up for a very, very eventful Friday. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your week into the weekend. And please join us on Monday. Final song is 누구나 겨울이 오면 by 잔나비. So enjoy this one and have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.
겨울이 오는 소리에 아침을 맞으면 밤사이 붙은 입술 첫눈은 그 위로 덮이는 립글로즈 창문 틈 사이로 오랜 기억이 날아들고 내게 겨울이 온다 누구나 겨울이 오면 가슴 한켠에 숨어 있던 따스한 기억을 품고 얼어붙은 맘을 녹이고 나죠 겨울이 오면 서둘러 찾은 저녁은 유난히 고요해 지나간 이야기들 나지막히 흐르는 거리에 기억은 눈처럼 그 위로 거닐 때가 따스해 내게 겨울이 온다 누구나 겨울이 오면 가슴 한켠에 숨어 있던 따스한 기억을 품고 얼어붙은 맘을 녹이고 나죠 겨울이 나에게 지난 겨울은 봄이 오기만을 기다린
Your bridge to the world.
BEFM 부산 영어방송
부산의 축제 어디까지 즐겨보셨나요? 과거와 현재, 미래가 공존하는 항구도시 부산. 이곳 부산은 계절을 물들이는 다양한 축제로 늘 풍성합니다. 봄의 시작을 알리는 봄꽃 축제부터 부산의 여름을 만끽하는 바다 축제, 전 세계 영화인들이 모이는 부산국제영화제와 새로운 시작의 해맞이 축제까지. 부산의 축제는 우리의 열정을